After that first game where the Colts lose to the Bills, is this the best this AFC side could have shaken out for the Chiefs with the Browns coming to Arrowhead?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. Every radio hit I did or the podcast I was on last week, everybody asked, "Well, who do you think the Chiefs would want to play?" And I didn't really have an answer in the sense that I think if the Chiefs play well, they would have beaten anybody they'd play. But
Right.
Mhm.
to me, the easiest team is Cleveland. And I thought the hardest team would have been Indianapolis because of how they spread the ball around. They have good interior pass rushers. They have a great line. Now Cleveland has a great line, and they
Mhm.
can run the ball. The problem with Cleveland is they can't stop anybody, and that is where I think this is a tough game for the Browns. They don't get a pass rush. They're 26th in pressure rate in the league. Garrett has 12 sacks. Nobody else who's going to be playing in the game has more than 4.5. They just struggle to generate pressure, and the problem with that, even beyond the obvious, is their secondary stinks. So now you're in a situation where you're not getting pressure on Mahomes, and he's just got all day to find some guy when it's Tyreek Hill against Terrence Mitchell, and it's Travis Kelsey against some linebacker you've never heard of. Like the and the further you go down that path, the further you get away if you're the Browns from being able to run the football. And now Mayfield's got to throw that play action where he's not been able to do that successfully all year. If I'm the Chiefs, I'm saying, look, early in the game, I'm playing a lot of base and a lot of nickel where they're actually a very good run defense.
Mhm.
I'd put Pennell and Noddy inside. I'd put Jones on the edge. And I'd tell them, hey, look, you want to run boot, you're getting Clark or Jones off one of those edges. And I tell both those guys, I don't care if you give up a couple runs inside, you let the big boys with Pennell and Noddy inside handle it. If he runs boot, kill him. Just go full bore at Mayfield. Don't worry about the run. Make them abandon that part of the game plan and then force him to throw the ball inside the pocket. I think if you're the Chiefs, that is a really good way to go. And then look, once you get up by enough points, you feel like you got to throw. Then you can bring Jones back in. You can do a lot of different things. But look, I expect Spagnuolo to be pretty multiple in the way they play. I also would play a lot of zone in this game if I'm the Chiefs. Look, just keep it in
Mhm.
front of you, tackle. Mayfield only threw for 3,500 yards or so this year. They don't have a lot of deep threats. They have one guy with over 600 receiving yards. So if I'm the Chiefs, like, go ahead. You're going to have to put together a 15-play drive to beat me. I don't think you can do it consistently. We'll see how Spagnuolo goes about it.
And that's been the thing with the Chiefs all year, and really the formula for them to you have to force them to have the opposing quarterback have the ball in his hands. You want to force Tannehill to beat you. You want to force Lamar Jackson to beat you. You want to force Phillip Rivers to beat you. Baker Mayfield's the same way. And that's not to say Baker's a bad quarterback because he's grown up a lot this year, but
Mm.
it's predicated upon having a good running game and creating those sustainable drives. Baker Mayfield's not going to throw for a billion yards against Mahomes, and people will bring up
Right.
that matchup they had in college. This isn't college anymore. This is the big boys playing football, and hats off to the Browns for being a really good team. The narrative that their defense is great is overblown because they're dealing with COVID stuff, and it really wasn't that great to begin with. Like Matt mentioned with the pressure rate, they just can't.
Mhm.
Patrick Mahomes is going to have a good game. He's had a week. He's had 2 weeks to rest. The Chiefs are coming off a bye week. That is a real thing with Andy Reid. Like, hats off to the Browns, all due respect, but this game is a lot more about the Chiefs, I think, than whoever they're playing against. This just happens to be the Browns.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that once you start looking more into this game, you're like, okay, the Browns did play well, but as Matt mentioned earlier, the Steelers turned the ball over 4 times in a quarter, and that kind of shot themselves in the foot. You don't expect the Chiefs to do that. They're a very solid team when it comes to when they have the football. Don't turn the football over much. So I think limiting the Browns' chances obviously is going to be a huge part in taking this game. But Matt, this line opened at 9.5 points in favor of
Yep.
the Chiefs. I saw it bump up to 10 in some places. Does that surprise you at all? I kind of when that come out, I saw Joshua Briscoe, friend of the program here. He said that he was kind of surprised with kind of the anti-Chiefs rhetoric and the pro-Browns rhetoric that it opened at 9.5.
Somebody asked me during the game on Twitter what I thought the line would open. I said 10. So I'm not
Mm,
surprised. I think, look, the Browns were outscored in the regular season. I get they
Mhm.
went 11-5. I mean, I'm not trying to discredit them, but I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. They beat the NFC
yeah.
East in 4 games. Okay. They beat the Bengals twice. They beat Houston. They beat Jacksonville. They lost to the Raiders. They beat so many of them on soon. It was Houston. And then the point I'm driving, the only two, they beat Mason Rudolph. The only two teams they beat that were good this year were Indianapolis and Tennessee.
Yeah.
And both those teams just went home. So I look at this and say, no, the Chiefs should be a big favorite in the game. By the way, I went back and did the research about an hour ago. Since 2000, there have been 11 teams, not including the Chiefs this weekend, who have been favored by double digits in the divisional round. Those teams are 8-3, 7 of the times they covered the spread. So, and the Chiefs, by the way, were favored by 10 against Houston last year. So now maybe you don't want to get off to quite the same start as you did against Houston. Maybe avoid spotting Cleveland 24 points. But this game, to me, for Kansas City comes down to just turnover. If they don't turn the ball over, they're not going to lose. They're just too talented. I mean, look, every time I look at a game, I say to myself, what does each team have to do to win? And when I sat down and did this with Clay, I said, they got to run the ball. They can't make big mistakes, turnovers, and penalties. They can't give up big plays. They've got to find a way to limit Kelsey on third down. They've got to keep Mahomes in the pocket. I found about 12 things that if they don't do that, they're going to lose the game. Then I went to the Chiefs side of it. And it's like, if they don't make big mistakes, they're going to win the game. I mean, what's easier to do? Execute one thing or 12? So it doesn't mean they can't lose. Doesn't mean they can't. Again, 10-point favorite last year. They're down 24-0. But they clearly are the best team. They should win the game. I know there's a report right now out there from Adam Teicher that says, they expect that there's going to be a lot of Browns fans at the game. There's like 20,000 people in the stands. I mean, even if they split it and it's 10-10, who cares? Like, let's be real. It's not like they're playing on the road in front of 80,000 people. I don't care if they're all Browns fans. The Chiefs should win the game. So to me, it's clearly, of the 4 games this weekend, it's the easiest one to pick.